بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. In the last lesson we looked at the discussion of raising the sword against the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and likewise raising the sword or making khuruj against the rulers. And we raised a number of important issues regarding the phrase that the Salaf used to use, وَلَا نَرَى السَّيْفِ, وَلَا نَرَى السَّيْفِ, and what it actually means. It can mean a number of things. So we looked at some of the issues regarding that. Today we're going to continue discussing the same topic, the topic of khuruj and the topic of the rulers specifically. And there's a number of issues that maybe 6 or 7 issues that we want to cover in this lesson, inshallah ta'ala. And this is to make the whole discussion to be more complete. So we begin by re-emphasizing the fact that this is a statement of belief. This is a statement of Aqeedah, which all of the Imams of the Salaf are agreed upon. This statement here, وَلَا نَرَى الْخُرُوجِ عَلَىٰ أَئِمَّتِنَا وَوُلَاةِ أُمُورِنَا وَإِنْ جَارُوا. This statement here, that we do not believe it permissible to revolt against our rulers, our leaders or our rulers, even if they are tyrannical. This sentence, you find it in the books of Aqeedah written by the Imams of the Salaf, and they made anyone who opposed this principle to be someone who is outside of the Sunnah and the Jamā'ah. And so the person who does this, this is, something which splits the unity, it splits the word, and, it brings about a lot of harms and evils into the society. So there are a number of masail, number of issues. The first issue that we look at here is that these names which are given for the rulers, the Imam and the Waliul Amr, these names that we use, we find that they have come in the Book and the Sunnah. The Book and the Sunnah has come with these titles. When we say the Waliul Amr and we say the Imam. Now what is the proof for that? And why is the reason why these terms have been used? Why has the term Imam and why has the term Waliul Amr? What is the reason for that? So first of all, the proofs in the Quran, we see in Surah An-Nisa, verse number 59, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati'u Allah wa ati'u rasul wa ulil amri minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger, and wa ulil amr. Ulil amri minkum. And those who are in charge of the affairs amongst you. So here clearly they've been labeled as Wulat al-Amr. And 59, verse 59. 4 verse 59. The reason why they've been given this label, Ulil Amr, as occurs in the ayah, or Wulat al-Amr, this is because they execute the affairs of the Sharia. They implement and they put in place the affairs of the Sharia, or the commandments of the Sharia. And likewise, there are certain issues in which they make ijtihad. They make ijtihad and they, put this upon the people. So in other words, the affair or the command returns back to them. Which means that in the hand of the wali, is commanding and prohibiting. Commanding and prohibiting. The Shaykh says that in our time, in a modern time, we see that it's a slightly different form. They call it a qarar. A qarar is like a resolution. The Waliul Amr, he makes a resolution. A resolution is made and then it is implemented. He actually carries it out and implements it. So, here we clearly see then the word Waliul Amr, in Arabic the plural Ulil Amr, those who are in charge, those who in whose hand is the affair. And likewise the word Imam, the plural of which is A'imma. And the Imam is the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed over the people. Allah has placed him over the people. And this is in order to try him and to test him. He's put in charge of the people. This is a trial and a test for him. And we see that this word Imam, again, it is because in his hand is commanding, prohibiting, the Amr, the Nahi and the Qarar, and making resolutions. And likewise the ijtihad that he makes, when he makes an ijtihad in an issue. So the word Imam is found in the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, the best of your leaders, خِيَارُ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ الَّذِينَ تُحِبُّونَهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَكُمْ. The best of your leaders are those whom you love and they love you. And you make dua for them and they make dua for you. And the most evil of your leaders are those who hate you and they hate you, and you curse them and they curse you. So this is one example of many in which the rulers have been called A'imma, which means an Imam. So, this is the first issue. We've established that in the Sharia, these are the terms which have actually been used. Waliul Amr and the Imam, and the reason for that is that in their hands is the commanding, prohibiting, making resolutions, making ijtihad. So the affair is really in their hands. And also the word Imam, is because the Imam is followed. The Imam is to be followed, and so the people, the subjects, they follow the Imam in whatever he commands and prohibits, and the ijtihad which he makes, so he is one who is followed. So that's the first point. The second point is, if we look at the original situation, the Waliul Amr which is mentioned in this ayah, the Waliul Amr, he has with him two qualities. There are two qualities. The first quality is that he regulates the affairs, he makes tadbir of the affairs of the people in general, in the affairs of the world, and likewise he protects them from the enemies. So in other words, he looks after the general affairs of the state, the affairs of the world, the affairs of the state. And the second quality that should be in a Waliul Amr is that he brings together with that knowledge of the rulings of the Sharia. Knowledge of the rulings of the Sharia. Now, it's not a condition that he has to be the most knowledgeable. Rather, he simply needs to have knowledge of the rulings of the Sharia. And the Shaykh says that this you can find in the books of fiqh, elaborated in the books of fiqh. So now these two qualities, when we look at the Khulafa al-Rashideen, we look at them, the first four Khulafa, we see that these Khulafa, they actually had both of these qualities. They organized the affairs of the people, they ruled the people, and likewise they also had ilm. They combined with that knowledge of the ahkam of the Sharia. And likewise in Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, and likewise many of the other rulers which came afterwards from the righteous rulers in history, we see that they combined between good rulership and likewise between ilm, knowledge. They were deeply rooted in knowledge. Likewise Umar bin Abdul Aziz, for example, and others in history. So he says that, however, even though this is the foundation, this is not the case in everybody. It is not the case that these two qualities come together in everybody. And so for that reason, sometimes they may need to go to the ulama, to the scholars who have knowledge of the Sharia and who have knowledge of the deen. And so in those situations, the Waliul Amr, who the ruler, he has good leadership, and the affairs of leadership are under his control. And as for the ahkam of the Sharia and the affairs, then that goes to the ulama, to the those who have knowledge of the religion. And from here, this is why some of the scholars say that in this ayah, wa ulil amri minkum, they say this refers to the ulama and the umara, the rulers, and likewise the scholars. That these two groups of people are, included within this ayah. However, the original situation, when we look at the khulafa, the four caliphs, we see that the ulil amr is the alim and the hakim. The alim, the scholar who is also the ruler, and the ruler who is also the scholar. So, however, obviously after that time, the scholars, they understood this ayah to mean the ulama and the umara, so they separated between the two. So the umara, the rulers, are the ones, they control the affairs of the world, right? What is for the benefit of the people. They implement the hudud, they protect the society, and so on and so forth. And so all of this is under their control. And likewise, the ulama, in the affairs of the religion, in the affairs of the ahkam of the sharia, what is permissible, not permissible, what the ruler should do, not do, and so on and so forth, all of that goes back to the scholars. So the Shaykh says, this, however, this is not the asal. The asal is that the waliul amr, he is the one who has ilm, he is the one who has knowledge. And this is the ayah, wa ulil amri minkum. This is what the ayah has come to be revealed. Now, the proof for this, what is the proof for this? The proof for this understanding is in the ayah in Surah An-Nisa, verse 83. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, He's speaking about when some issue arises, and Allah says, وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. This is that famous ayah in which it is mentioned that when there is like an issue to do with public safety, and the people just began to speak about it, and if only they had returned it back to the Rasul, to the messenger, if they return it back to the messenger, وَإِلَىٰ أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ. He used the word ulil amr. And then he says, then those people, they would have derived and taken the correct understanding and the ruling therein. The point of evidence here is in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He used the word وَإِلَىٰ أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ. This can only be referring to the ulama, to the people of knowledge, And so this ayah then is a proof that the asal, the original situation is that the waliul amr, he is the one who is the ruler, and he also has the ilm, he also has the knowledge. Now this is an ayah in which this is a proof. So whenever we have these two qualities that come together, and they are very rare, then this is the waliul amr. However, if the two qualities do not come together in the ruler, so then in that case we make a separation. The waliul amr is the one who makes tadbir of the affairs of the dunya, and the alim is the one who has ilm, knowledge of the affairs of the deen. So after this is the second point then. So the third point, the first point that we looked at is these names are from the Sharia, waliul amr and the imam. The second point is that there are two qualities of the ulil amr, which is a tadbir, good tadbir, having the qualities of ruling, and likewise having ilm. That's the asal, that's the original foundation, and we see that in the khulafa, ar-rashideen, and some others who came after them. The third point, now we move to the third point, is that when people make khuruj, when people make rebellion and a revolt against those in whose hands is the control, the Shaykh says there are numerous groups who fall into this. From them are the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila. We mentioned this in the previous lesson. From them also are some of the Tabi'een the tabi'een, and some of those who followed the tabi'een. This is a very small group amongst the tabi'een. They fell into this khuruj. But this small group of tabi'een, they oppose the large majority of the tabi'een. This is only a small group that they fell into this. And likewise, some of the fuqaha, some of the jurists who came later after many centuries, they likewise held this opinion, and they were affected by the Mu'tazila. So you see, all of these are the different groups. The Khawarij and the Mu'tazila, a small number of the tabi'een, and then some of the later scholars from the fuqaha who expressed that opinion. The reason why this is important to know is because there are some people present today, they have some shubuhat, they bring shubuhat, and then they say that some of the tabi'een, they made khuruj, some of the fuqaha, they say like Imam al-Nawawi, for example, he said this, or Ibn Hajar, for example, said this, or whatever, and these are from the later times. And then what they try to do is they try to claim that the view on khuruj is a matter of ikhtilaf. There are some ulama who say it is unlawful to make khuruj. And there are some ulama who say it is permissible to make khuruj. And then they bring, the actions of the tabi'een, they bring some kalam of Imam al-Nawawi, some kalam of Ibn Hajar and things like this. All of this is deception on their behalf. And inshallah, maybe by the end of the lesson, this deception will become clear, inshallah ta'ala. So, these are the different groups, and they hold the view, they somehow come to the view that khuruj is something that is permissible. However, what we established in the previous lesson, with all of the evidences, and likewise we say again here, that all of the Sahaba, and all of the tabi'een, the majority of the tabi'een, they are agreed, and likewise all of the leading scholars, the imams of Ahlus Sunnah, they are agreed that making khuruj, rebelling against the ruler, is a kabira, it is a major sin. And it is not something which has a basis in the book or the sunnah. And the evidences that we mentioned are very many. We mentioned them in the previous lesson. And these evidences are so strong and so clear that anyone who opposes this principle, we treat him to be from the people of innovation and people of misguidance. So there's no doubt about any of that. The ahadith which have come in that regard, the proof, these ahadith are mutawatir. They are mutawatir in meaning. So, now that this is clear, there are certain people who come and they make ijtihad. They made ijtihad. And as a result of this, they made khuruj against some of the rulers. So for example, some people, they made khuruj against the Bani Umayyah, the early dynasty of rulers. And some of them likewise, they made khuruj in the time of Bani al-Abbas. They made ijtihad, some of the tabi'een. And, there are other situations before that from those who made khuruj against Uthman, radiyallahu anhu, and other than them. And so, the scholars, they treated those who made khuruj in this manner, then the scholars considered this to be a bid'ah, which opposes the evidences. Now the question comes, this is now the question, which is that those people who made ijtihad, they made ijtihad and they saw it that they should make rebellion or revolt against the ruler who is a Muslim. They made ijtihad despite the fact that there were many evidences that were present in the Sharia. And that these evidences are so many in number, they are mutawatir in meaning, that the waliul amr, the imam, the amir, that it is that it is unlawful to rebel against him, and it is obligatory to obey him in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, despite this being something very clear, there are some scholars who because there were some of the tabi'een who made khuruj, so some of the tabi'een did make khuruj, they were very small in number. Some of the fuqaha who came afterwards, they looked at the action of this small number of tabi'een, and they used words which were very generous, very liberal words. So for example, Ibn Hajar, he said, Al-Khuruj ala al-Wulat kana madhhaban li ba'di salaf qadiman. This is Ibn Hajar. Then he said, ثم لما رؤي أنه ما أتى للأمة إلا بالشر والفساد أجمع أئمة الإسلام على تحريمه وعلى الإنكار على من فعله. So look at what Ibn Hajar said. He said at the beginning, he said that khuruj was the madhab of some of the salaf in the very early times. This is a mistake. This is a khata. This is not correct. Because those who made khuruj were actually very, very, very small in number. They made an ijtihad and they made a mistake in that ijtihad. This was not the madhab of the salaf. The madhab of the salaf, the sahaba, and the majority of the tabi'een was that they do not make khuruj against the hakim. So, how do we look at this situation? We look at this situation, for example, amongst the tabi'een, there were some people amongst the tabi'een who fell into the bid'ah of al-qadr. There were some from the tabi'een who fell into al-qadr. And likewise, there were some who fell into something of al-irja. They fell into the belief of al-irja. And likewise, there were some of the tabi'een who made ijtihad and they fell into what was the way of the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila. They fell into khuruj. So in other words, when we look amongst the tabi'een, then there were amongst them individuals or numbers of them, some who got affected by the statement of the Qadariyah, some who were affected by the statement of the Murji'ah, some who got affected by the way and the approach of the Khawarij in khuruj. This is found amongst some of the tabi'een. So this cannot be treated as the madhab of the salaf. This is rather an ijtihad which is incorrect. It is a khata. It is a mistake. And that can never ever be made to be the madhab of the salaf. Otherwise, we can say the same thing. We can say, for example, some of the tabi'een, they fell into al-qadr. And we can say, well, qadr was the madhab of some of the salaf. This is a mistake. We can't say this. And likewise, if we were to say that because some of the tabi'een, they held the view of al-irja, we therefore say irja was the view or the madhab of some of the salaf. We can't say this. This is a mistake. So likewise, in the same way, just because some of the tabi'een, they made khuruj against some of the hukam, this does not become from the madhab of the salaf. This is a khata from some of the tabi'een. So the Shaykh mentions a principle here, والعبرة بما دلت عليه الأدلة لا باجتهاد من اجتهد وأخطأ في ذلك. This is a principle, that what we give consideration to, the thing which is considered, is what the evidence shows, what the evidence proves, not the ijtihad of the one who made ijtihad and then he made a mistake in that ijtihad. Right? Because this is what those people are doing when they go back and say, well, so-and-so person made khuruj and so-and-so person made khuruj. This is their ijtihad. And we can't use their ijtihad against the clear Sharia texts in the Quran and the Sunnah, what the Sahaba were agreed upon, and what the Imams of the Sunnah were agreed upon, and what they wrote in their books. We can't go to that mistaken ijtihad. So this is the third principle then. The third point that we are making. The third point is that those who fell into a mistake, they made an ijtihad, and they fell into a mistake. There are numerous groups, those who are the devious groups like the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila. And likewise, there were those who from the Tabi'een who made an ijtihad and they made a mistake. And likewise from the Fuqaha who came afterwards, we cannot use their statements to clash with the clear texts of the Quran and the Sunnah. Right? We shouldn't fall into that mistake. So this is point number 3. Point number 4, the fourth point is there are some more evidences in the Quran for this principle again. And so from the Quran, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, "Man yuti'ir Rasul faqad ata'a Allah." Man yuti'ir Rasul faqad ata'a Allah. Whoever obeys the messenger, then he has obeyed Allah. Whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. Now pay attention to this. This verse, this ayah, should be understood in relation to a hadith. In another hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he explained, "Man yuti'il amir, man yuti'il amir, faqad ata'ani, wa man ya'sil amir, faqad asani." So he said, whoever obeys the amir, whoever obeys the ruler, then he has obeyed me. And whoever disobeys the ruler, then he has disobeyed me. When we put this hadith and the ayah together, the connection is clear and obvious. Whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. And whoever obeys the ruler in that which is good, then he has obeyed the messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Therefore, whoever obeys the ruler, he has obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very, very clear, when we put the hadith along with the ayah. Likewise, the verse that we discussed at the beginning, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul wa ulil amri minkum." Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, the word ati'u, it has come only for Allah and His Messenger. In the ayah he said, "Ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul." Why? Because obedience to them is unconditional. Unconditional. It is absolute. However, when he came to mention the ulil amr, he did not say ati'u. He said, "Wa ulil amri minkum." And this is because obedience to the rulers is conditional. It has a condition. It is only when it is in obedience to Allah and His Messenger. So when the ruler commands something in which it involves disobedience to Allah and His Messenger, then it is unlawful. It is not permissible to obey the ruler in that. Because of the statement, because of the hadith, there is no obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator. So that's why in this ayah the verb ati'u was not repeated 3 times. So it was only mentioned twice. Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum, because for the rulers there is a condition attached, which is obey them in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh brings a third ayah in the Quran. This ayah is in relation to Dawood alayhi salam. "Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard, fahkum bayna an-nasi bil haqq, wa la tattabi'il hawa fayudillaka an sabilillah. Innal ladhina yadilluna an sabilillah," to the end of the ayah. So here Allah says, "O Dawood, indeed we made you to be a khalifa upon the earth. So judge between the people with truth, and do not follow the hawa, do not follow the desire, so that it misguides you from the path of Allah," to the end of the ayah. The Shaykh is saying here that what is the evidence in this ayah? How do we make istidlal from this ayah? He says that in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded Dawood, and He also commanded many of the other messengers and prophets, that whoever becomes a ruler, whoever becomes a waliul amr, then it is a must that he judges between the people with truth, bil haqq, and that he does not follow the hawa, he does not follow the desires. And so the Shaykh says this is something which is a goal. The ruler has to fulfill this. And so when he fulfills this and he implements this in truth, then he is to be obviously followed in that truth. He is to be followed by the people in that truth. So this is another ayah the Shaykh brings to make istidlal, to bring as evidence for the same point. Then he brings a series of ahadith as evidence. I'll quickly mention them. The hadith that we just mentioned, "Man ata'a al-amir faqad ata'ani wa man asa al-amir faqad asani." Whoever obeys the Amir has obeyed me, and whoever disobeys the Amir has disobeyed me. Likewise, it is upon the Muslim man to hear and obey in that which he likes and that which he dislikes. Unless إلا أن يؤمر بمعصية فلا سمع ولا طاعة. Unless he is commanded with disobedience, then there is no hearing and no obedience. He also said, إنما الطاعة في المعروف. Obedience is only in that which is good. And he also said, من رأى من أميره شيئا يكرهه فليكره ما يأتي من معصية الله ولا تنزعن يدا من طاعة. Whoever sees from his Amir something that he dislikes, then let him dislike that which is disobedience to Allah, but let him not remove his hand from obedience. So you dislike the opposition, but you cannot remove your hand from obedience to him. And likewise he mentions the same hadith that we mentioned before, خِيَارُ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ الَّذِينَ تُحِبُّونَهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَكُمْ. The best of your leaders are those whom you love and they love you, and you pray for them and they pray for you. And the most evil, وَشِرَارُ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ الَّذِينَ تُبْغِضُونَهُمْ وَيُبْغِضُونَكُمْ. The most evil of the rulers are those who you hate them and they hate you, and you curse them and they curse you. And then the Sahaba said, shall we not fight them? أَفَلَا نُقَاتِلُهُمْ. Shall we not fight them? Meaning those whom they hate and whom they curse. And the Messenger of Allah, he said, لَا مَا أَقَامُوا فِيكُمْ الصَّلَاحِ. No, as long as they establish the prayer amongst you. And then the Messenger continued, indeed, whenever a ruler was appointed over him, أَلَا مَنْ وَلِيَ عَلِيهِ وَالٍ فَرَآهُ يَأْتِي شَيْئًا مِنْ مَعْصِيَةٍ. That whoever a ruler came to rule over, and he saw something of disobedience, then let him dislike the disobedience that he brought, and let him not remove his hand from his obedience. So these are some of the evidences for this asal, from this principle that we find in the book and the Sunnah, and that a person should stick to these evidences and not follow his hawa and follow the ta'wil, follow the faulty interpretation, the khata of some of the tabi'een or some of the later fuqaha who came afterwards. Right, so we stick to the evidences. This is the fourth point. And the fifth point that we come to now, the fifth point is that this khuruj, which is prohibited, it can occur in 2 or 3 ways. The first, so when we speak of khuruj, there are 2 or 3 things which come under khuruj. The first one is when a person simply believes with i'tiqad. This is now just belief. He believes that he does not have to make the bay'ah, the pledge of allegiance. And he does not believe that it is haram to make khuruj. It is unlawful to make khuruj. Or he believes it is wajib to make khuruj. All of these are beliefs which he is holding. Or he believes it is permissible to make khuruj, to rebel and to revolt. So all of these are matters of belief which he is holding. I don't have to give bay'ah. I don't have to make obedience. I can make khuruj, or it's wajib to make khuruj. These are beliefs which he's holding inside his chest. Right? So this is khuruj in terms of belief. This person is the one whom the Salaf intended when they said, Kana yara as-sayf. Kana yara as-sayf. They meant to indicate his belief. He used to hold it as a belief. The second way, the second method, is when a person makes actual khuruj against the imam. And so he uses force, he uses physical strength, he wants to take the imam and remove him, he wants to kill the imam, he wants to use force, and so this, he does it in terms of action. This also is from khuruj. This is in amal. The first is i'tiqad, this here is amal. So these are 2 surahs, two forms. The first is i'tiqad, and the second is with amal. Now the third one is with qawl, with speech. But the scholars, they have tafsil. They have tafsil because not every qawl is to be considered khuruj. And so the scholars, they make tafsil. They say we have to distinguish between certain statements which lead to khuruj and certain statements which might just be from al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa-nahi anil munkar. Right? So there are some statements that lead to khuruj and some statements which are not considered to be like that. So in the statement of, in relation to the qawl, there is tafsil. There is tafsil. And so the Shaykh says, therefore, this is the summary in terms of khuruj. It can happen by i'tiqad, it can happen by amal, it can also happen by qawl. But as it relates to qawl, then it is something in which there is tafsil. Not every qawl can be considered to be khuruj. So for example, those people who, you see people like this al-Mis'ari, and they live in this country, Sa'ad al-Faqih. These are people who've left the Muslim lands and they come and they established in London, and then they send faxes, they write on the internet, they do broadcast, and all they're doing is they're speaking against the rulers. They are sinful, they are this, they are this, they are kuffar, they are this, whatever, and they are making this kalam. And by making this kalam, they are affecting the hearts of the people, and they want the people to hate and to eventually make khuruj. This is what they want to do. This then is considered to be khuruj. This is khuruj. However, for example, sometimes an alim can come to a ruler, a hakim, and he might advise him with the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to prevent the ma'asiyah which is in the society. And so he goes and he gives them this, this statement. This is al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. This is not to be considered khuruj like what these other evil people do. So the Shaykh says there's tafsil in the issue of qawl. So this is the fifth point then, the ways in which the people make khuruj. And we move to the sixth point, which is the things that lead people to make khuruj. The things that lead people to make khuruj. There are certain asbab. There are certain reasons why this takes place. The first reason, first of two reasons. First is at-ta'wil. At-ta'wil is to make an interpretation. To have an interpretation. Now the Shaykh gives an example. He says, if you look at the khuruj against Uthman radiyallahu anhu, the evil people who made khuruj against Uthman radiyallahu anhu, the reason why they made khuruj, or what led them to make khuruj, is they made the claim, they said that Uthman radiyallahu anhu is putting his own relatives in power, and they made these accusations and they made these statements, and they claimed that we are making inkar of this, that we want to make inkar, that we want to show rejection against this. So this was the initial starting point, right? They made a ta'wil, a faulty interpretation, and upon that they set forth a series of events. Those events eventually led to the killing and the murder of Uthman radiyallahu anhu. And in fact, the Shaykh mentions here that even when Uthman radiyallahu anhu was killed, they had to bury him in secret. He had to be buried secret. Why? Because those people who had come from the different cities and they came to Medina and they surrounded, the house of Uthman, all of these people, they were still present. And they did not want these people to get access to the body of Uthman radiyallahu anhu. So they even had to bury him in a secret way. So the point that is being made here is that these people, what led them to this khuruj is that they made this ta'wil, they made this claim that in terms of mal, in terms of wealth, there are certain tasarrufat, there are certain dealings. In terms of appointing people in power, there are certain dealings. These are the excuses. These are the reasons which they brought, and they claimed that they were establishing justice. They were claiming to establish adl, as they claim. So this is the first sabab. This is the first reason that leads people to make khuruj. And in fact, as Sheikh Rabi, he mentions in one of his refutations of Sayyid Qutb, because Sayyid Qutb was someone who revived this idea. He brought out this idea. And this idea, he brought it because he was a Marxist, communist, socialist for a large part of his life. Now, for about 15, 20 years of his life, he was reading the books of the Marxists, communists, socialists. And then when he turned to Islam, when he began writing about Islam upon jahl, upon ignorance, then when he looked into history, he looked at the Bani Umayyah, he looked at Uthman radiallahu anhu, and then when he interpreted that history, he looked at it through the spectacles of that Marxist, communist, socialist ideology that he had been upon for 15, 20 years of his life. So then he began to speak ill of Uthman radiallahu anhu. He began to speak ill of him and accuse him of certain things. And the revolution against Uthman, he began to praise that revolution. He began to say that this revolution came from the true spirit of Islam. This is how he describes it in his book, Al-Adala Al-Ijtima'iyyah. That this revolution came from a true spirit of Islam. And this is with his knowledge, this is whilst he knows that it was Abdullah bin Saba al-Yahudi who was behind the whole thing. So the point being that this is one of the asbab, this claim that the ruler, he is disposing of wealth, the mal, in a certain way, and he's putting certain people in position who are from his relatives. Right? And so they want to establish adl, they want to establish justice, social justice. And that's why Sheikh Rabi said, if you look in history, and you look at every single mischief maker who wants to come out and he wants to create mischief, he will always lift the flag of al-adl. He will come and say, I want justice. And the Shaykh gives some names: Abdullah bin Saba, Mukhtar bin Abi Ubaid, I've forgotten his name, Mukhtar al-Thaqafi. There was a number of others in history as well. And likewise, right up until this time, the communists, the Shuyu'iyyah, these people, they all come in the name, the Marxists, they come in the name of al-adl, justice. So this is the first sabab. The second sabab, second reason, is that you see there are certain people, they see sins taking place in the society and they develop this dislike in their hearts. They develop this dislike. And they see things that they dislike and they are not able to have sabr. So this is the key thing now. Right? So they live in a society, they are seeing evils, they are seeing disobedience, they are seeing sin, they're seeing the ruler maybe committing sin, and they see things that in the society, there are fawahish, there is ma'siyah, and they see that the ruler is not really doing anything. So obviously, they don't like it in their hearts. They dislike it in their hearts. But the mistake is that they are not able to have sabr. And when they're not able to have sabr, then they believe that they are making al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. And then they come out and they are eventually led into making khuruj, to rebelling against the ruler. This then leads to even more bigger problems in the society. But look at how this is working. This is how shaitan, he comes to people and he makes them think that they are being righteous, that they hate the evil, they dislike the evil, and they need to change this evil. This is something righteous. But he wants to prevent them from having sabr, So what they do is they make ta'wil, they are making ta'wil again, and they claim that we are enjoining the good and prohibiting the evil. So then they eventually make khuruj practically and physically. And all of this is because they hate the evils which are taking place around them. See, these people, an example of this is like these people, the Juhayman, who revolted. They were eventually killed in Saudi Arabia about 1979, 1980. These people, the same thing. They were misguided by shaitan into thinking that they're going to rectify the society and change the society and all these evils in society, and they couldn't have sabr. They couldn't have sabr. Now the Shaykh here, he gives an example. He says that this example here, which begins when a man starts hating the things which happen around him in the society. He says, the great example of this is what happened in the time of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. Because Imam Ahmad, he saw in that time that the great scholars of Islam, they saw this issue of the Quran being created, was being imposed upon the whole ummah. Scholars were being killed. Scholars were being imprisoned, slaughtered, beaten. They were being summoned and raised and brought to the rulers. And some of them were beheaded. Some of them were imprisoned. Some of them were exiled. A lot of them were stripped of their positions in the masajid, in qada, in so on and so forth. This is how this was brought upon the ummah. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was asked, when people came to him and said, shall we not fight against these people? Shall we not fight against these rulers? And Imam Ahmad, he signaled with his hand. He said, Iyākum wad-dima, Iyākum wad-dima. He said, beware of the blood. Beware of the blood. And then he began to mention the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man ra'a min amirihi shay'an yakrahahu falyasbir. Falyasbir. Now look at how he used that hadith. He's using that hadith when the rulers are imposing kufr into the hearts of the whole of the ummah. And he's using this hadith, Man ra'a min amirihi shay'an yakrahahu falyasbir. And this is because the Shaykh says that the person who dislikes, he says this refers also to the karaha, which is deeniyah, that you dislike things which are related to the deen, and the karaha, which is in relation to the dunya, because a person can hate things in terms of the dunya. Dunya meaning wealth. The wealth is not coming, the ruler is hoarding the wealth, all these are the dunyawi affairs. Or there can be deeni affairs. Why isn't the ruler preventing this alcohol? Why isn't the ruler punishing those thieves? Why isn't the ruler doing this? Why isn't the ruler doing this? This is the deeni affairs. So a person can dislike things which are in relation to deen or in terms of dunya. So the sabr which is mentioned in this hadith, Man ra'a min amirihi shay'an yakrahahu falyasbir, it covers both of these things. Affairs of the dunya that you dislike and affairs of the deen that you dislike. And this is why Imam Ahmad, he made istidlal by way of this hadith when those people came to him and said, let us fight these rulers, let us fight them. So this shows that in some situations you have to have sabr. There has to be sabr. Even when you see things in terms of the deen that you dislike, you have to have sabr. And that's why when you look in many of these countries, like you've seen where there's revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt and Algeria and all these places where you see all these revolutions have taken place, no doubt there were evils in these countries. There's there's ma'siyah, there's alcohol, there's fornication, there's tabarruj, there's all sorts of things which are present in these societies. And these people, they could not have sabr. They didn't have sabr. And so therefore, exactly what we are discussing, they made ta'wil, they claimed al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, and they combined other things as well. They made takfir of the hakim, like in Egypt, for example, and they were led to khuruj, and they never brought about any good whatsoever. So we see that when we look at the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, look at this example of the Sahaba. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he prayed behind the Amir of Kufa. the Amir of Kufa in Iraq. And this Amir of Kufa, he had been appointed by Uthman radiyallahu anhu. He was the appointed by Uthman in Kufa. Ibn Abbas prayed behind him, and he would drink alcohol. He would drink alcohol. He prayed once, and Ibn Mas'ud prayed behind, and this Amir, he led them in the Fajr prayer, and he prayed 4 rak'ahs. He prayed 4 rak'ahs. So when they finished, when he made taslim, he said to them, he said, shall I pray with you more? Shall I give you increase? And he said, so the Amir said, the ruler who's praying, leading me in prayer, he said, have I fallen short in my prayer? And they said, we've not ceased to pray with you, even when you added the additional the rak'ahs. So the point being that this man, this leader, he was drunk, his mind wasn't there. He came, he led the people in Fajr, he prayed 4 rak'ahs, they all prayed behind him, and this was the state of this ruler. They never made khuruj against this ruler, they never raised the issue like this. So this shows, the point that's being made from this incident, and also from the incident of Imam Ahmad, is to show that in some situations, even if you see ma'siyah, even if you see things which you dislike, then in the sunnah we have been commanded with sabr. And that is in order to protect the society from the greater evil if you were to stir things and create tribulation. Right? This is from the sunnah. And this is why in the text of the Sharia, the only thing that would make khuruj to be permissible is al-kufr al-bawah. Al-kufr al-bawah, which is clear, open kufr. And that's why we see in that hadith, in another hadith, in which the Sahaba said to the Messenger of Allah, shall we not fight against them, against the rulers who do such and such? He said, no. They said, should we not revolt and rebel against them? He said, La illa an taraw kufran bawahan indakum min Allahi fihi burhan. He said, no, unless you see, meaning with the eyes, kufr, that which is clear kufr, plain clear kufr, for which you have an evidence from Allah. Now, the scholars, when they look at this hadith and they interpret this hadith, they explain this hadith, they say, the scholars, they have 2 views regarding this hadith. 2 views regarding this hadith. The first group of scholars, they say that when we see clear, open, manifest kufr from the hakim, from the ruler, they say, yajib al-khuruj. Yajib al-khuruj. Meaning it is wajib to make khuruj. Wajib. And when they say it is wajib, it means that we have to take the ways and the means and make preparations to eventually make khuruj against the ruler. Now pay attention to the word, they say it is wajib. It becomes wajib. This is the view of one group of scholars. However, the other statement, the other view, and this is the correct view, it is yajuz walakin la yajib. It is permissible to make khuruj, to revolt against the ruler, but it does not become obligatory. Why? They say because as-sabr awla, patience is more befitting, unless it is possible to remove the ruler without creating more harm and more bloodshed. Right? So this view here, we see that this is what the ulama, the scholars like Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and many of the ulama, they explain that even when the hakim is a kafir, with kufr which is bawah, even then, it is better to have patience if it is going to lead to more evil if you revolt against him. And this situation here, you can see that this has diqqah, it has precision in this position. And when you look at what has happened, for example, in Syria, where the ruler is a kafir, and Libya, where the ruler is a kafir, you see that this position, you can see that this is clearly that which entails the greater benefit and protection of the society. Right? It is better to have patience than to revolt and rebel, and you lead to even more evil, more tribulation that you see now, for example, in Libya and other places. So, this was the fifth or the sixth point, which was, what are the reasons that lead people to make khuruj? Number one is ta'wil, al-mal, the issues of wealth and whatever, and they want adl. And secondly, they begin to hate the evils in the society and they want to make al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar. These are the reasons that lead people to make khuruj. And obviously they're not able to have patience, which is what we find in the sunnah of the Messenger ﷺ. This leads us now to the seventh issue. The seventh issue is that obedience to the rulers is from obedience to Allah, and so therefore it is ibadah and qurbah. This obedience that we are commanded with, this is worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because the Prophet ﷺ, as we mentioned in the hadith earlier on, whoever obeys the Amir has obeyed me, whoever disobeys the Amir has disobeyed me. And obedience to the Messenger in the ayah is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, this obedience in whatever is good, then this is from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the scholars have divided the actions of the rulers into three different categories, the types of obedience. So they put them into three categories. The first category is that they say that the ruler, he might command something which is obedience, ta'ah. He commands establishing the prayer. He commands giving the zakah. He commands fulfilling the rights of the sharia. He establishes the hudud. He prohibits the people from the muharramat. All of this is wajib for him to be obeyed in all of this. This is wajib for him to be obeyed in all of this. This is the first thing that the ruler can do. The second thing that the ruler can do is to make ijtihad. A situation comes that we've never had before. It wasn't present, in the time of revelation. And so he makes ijtihad, and what he does, he goes and he chooses an opinion amongst the opinions which have come before, or maybe there is no opinion from the ulama that came before. It's a totally new situation, and so he makes ijtihad in that issue. By way of example, let's say like in a modern context, we have, for example, road safety. The ruler decides that we're going to have speed limits on the roads, and likewise he decides that there are going to be customs, like at the ports, at the airports, at the ships and things like this. There's going to be regulation. All of these are from the ijtihad of the hakim, and these are wasa'il, ways and means, by which he is fulfilling the maqasid of the sharia, the objectives of the sharia, which is protecting the people, protecting life, protecting wealth, protecting the safety of the country. Now the scholar makes ijtihad, the ruler makes ijtihad, or the scholars make ijtihad, and they inform the ruler, and so he implements these things in the country, in the society. These things, the scholars say, likewise, that the ruler must be obeyed in these types of things. The ruler must be obeyed in these types of things, even in the matters of ijtihad. Right? So you see, there are some ignorant people, many ignorant people, many years back, they came along, and this shows it is from their ignorance of the religion. They don't understand anything. And they began to say, for example, that the customs at the airports is a bid'ah, and all of these road signals and signs, this is a bid'ah. It has no basis in the sharia. Right? And they say we don't have to obey the hakim, we don't have to obey the ruler in these things because it's bid'ah. These are from the qawaneen wad'iyyah. They say these are from the secular laws. They are from the rules and laws of the secular countries, and it is kufr to judge by these things. The customs, likewise the road safety laws, and all of this is from the jahl of these people. These people are the ignoramuses. And this is because they don't understand the difference between the things which are wasa'il. They are, in the Sharia, they are maqasid. The Sharia has come to protect 5 things. The Sharia has come to protect sound religion, sound belief, the deen. It has come to protect the nafs, the life, a person's life. It's come to protect the mal, the wealth of a person. It's also come to protect the aql of a person, the mind. And it's also come to protect the ird, the honor. And so it comes to protect these things. So the scholars explain that, for example, when the Sahaba, when they compiled the Quran and put it into a mushaf, this is simply a wasila to make hifz of the Quran. Because the objective, the maqsad, is to protect the religion and protect the Quran. So putting the mushaf into one is simply a wasila to that end. It's not a bid'ah. Not a bid'ah. It's simply from the wasail by which we fulfill Sharia goals. This is something completely different to what is an actual bid'ah in the religion. So in a similar way, all of these things are not from bid'ah in the religion. Right? Having customs, having road safety. This is not from bid'ah in the religion. It is from the masalih, the benefits that we achieve by which the Sharia objectives are fulfilled. Anyway, so these people many years back, they were using this argument that because the ruler, he has customs, at the airports, and he has road safety, and he has this, all of this is from the qawaneen wad'iyah, this is kufr, and we do not obey the ruler in this. All of this is from the jahl. Rather, these things are from the ijtihadat of the rulers and the scholars, and they put these things in place, and they are for public safety, public benefit, and in these things we have to obey the ruler as well. Now the third type is when the ruler commands something which is disobedience. This is the one in which we cannot obey the ruler. We do not obey the ruler in any of this. It is not permissible to obey the ruler in this. And that's why we see the hadith, على المرء المسلم السمع والطاعة فيما أحب وكره إلا أن يؤمر بمعصية. It is upon a Muslim man to hear and obey in what he likes, what he dislikes, unless he is commanded with disobedience. And likewise the Messenger said, إنما الطاعة في المعروف. Indeed, obedience is only in that which is good. So this is the 7th point. The 7th point is that the rulers can fall into these 3 things. The ma'roof, that which is ijtihad, and that which is ma'siyah. And it is the 3rd one that we are not allowed to hear and obey the ruler. This brings us to the final point of today's lesson, inshallah, and this is an important point, actually, a very important point. And this is, Imam al-Tahawi said, وَإِن جَارُوا, that we do not revolt against them, we do not make khuruj. And he said, وَإِن جَارُوا, even if they make jawr, even if they are tyrannical. This is a refutation of those people who claim, you hear many of these khawarij today. You see these people, Abu Qatada, Abu Hamza al-Misri, all these people from the Tahririyin, Hizb Tahrir, all these Khawarij, you see them using the argument that the verses in the Quran and the Ahadith in the Sunnah, they only refer to a Hakim which is Adil, a Hakim who is just, and he's implementing the Sharia. They say this obedience is only for that Hakim. And this is batil, and this opposes the Aqeedah of the Salaf. It opposes the clear text in the Sunnah. And so here they claim this is for the taqi, the pious one, for the one who is just, and the one who is implementing all of the Sharia. This is what they say. The ruler has to implement all of the Sharia, then and only then do these verses and these ahadith apply to him. The Shaykh says here, this is incorrect, because the jawr that we find mentioned by Imam al-Tahawi and many others, who came before him, and which you find mentioned in the text, this jawr is of 2 types. Al-jawr fi ad-din wal-jawr fi ad-dunya. Al-jawr fi ad-din wal-jawr fi ad-dunya. There is tyranny in matters of the religion. In matters of the religion. And there is jawr in ad-dunya. In dunya. In matters of the dunya. Now, this is the very important thing to understand from this. When it comes to al-jawr in the deen, when it comes to a ruler being oppressive in matters of the religion, then the principle is that it is not permissible to revolt against them until it reaches the level of kufr. This is the only thing that makes it permissible, makes it jaiz, not wajib, makes it jaiz to make khuruj against the hakim. When we see, as we see in the hadith, إِلَّا أَن تَرَوْا كُفْرًا بَوَّاحًا, unless you see clear, plain, manifest kufr. This is the qa'idah, this is the principle, this is a dhabit that the scholars give. That when it comes to a ruler making jawr in affairs of the deen, and the best example is Imam Ahmad and the rulers who are imposing kufr upon the ummah. Right? In that situation, it is jaiz, though it is better to have sabr if it is going to lead to greater evil. Right? So, jawr in the deen, its dhabit, its principle is that it has to reach the level of kufr. Has to be a level of kufr. As for jawr in the dunya, then a person has to obey and hear and listen, and there is no exception. There is no dhabit. There's nothing. Because in the hadith we see, in the hadith of Hudhayfa, وَإِن ضُرِبَ ظَهْرَكَ وَإِن ضُرِبَ ظَهْرُكَ وَأُخِذَ مَالُكَ, that even if your wealth is taken and your back is beaten, even then, here in terms of the dunya, in terms of mal, in terms of you being taken, beaten, imprisoned, oppressed, your wealth being taken, your rights being withheld, here there is no dhabit. Here it is absolute. Even if your back is beaten and your wealth is taken. So it's important to understand that the jawr wa in jaru, the rulers can be tyrannical and oppressive in the deen, affairs of the deen, and they can be tyrannical and oppressive in affairs of the dunya. In the deen, the dhabit, the principle is that it must reach the level of actual kufr. Not the kufr that these people claim from their jahl, that they claim, but it has to be actual kufr. And as for the dunya, then there is no dhabit. He is to be obeyed no matter what the tyranny, and no matter what in terms of wealth and material things and so on and so forth. So this leads us now finally, that's the end of the 8th point, and the rest of the stuff we've actually covered in the previous lesson. We've already covered some of this material in the previous lesson. So with that, inshallah, we can conclude our lesson today. These are 8 important points. We'll just mention them again. The first point that we mentioned here is the names given to rulers in the Sharia is Imam and Waliul Amr. Waliul Amr and Imam. And there's a reason behind why they are referred to as the Imam and the Waliul Amr. We explained that reason. The second point we said is that there are 2 qualities that come together in someone who is a Waliul Amr. He is one who is fit for ruling. He has the qualities of making husnul tadbir, good regulation of the affairs, and likewise he has ilm. He has ilm. This is the asl. A Waliul Amr is the one who has both of these qualities. And this was found in the rightly guided Khulafa, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiallahu anhum, and likewise some of the Khulafa who came afterwards, Muawiyah, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and other than them. However, the scholars explain that where those qualities are not found in one person, then you have the Umara and you have the Ulama. And that's why the scholars explain that ayah, Ulil Amr, to mean the scholars and the rulers. This was the second point. The third point that we said is that those who make khuruj and those who rebel, like the Mu'tazila and the Khawarij, and likewise some of the Tabi'een, and likewise some of the later fuqaha who presented khuruj in a way as if it was a madhab of the Salaf, all of this is khata. And we cannot use the ijtihad of those scholars or those Tabi'een to go against the texts in the Sharia which are very clear and which are very explicit. And we looked at the verses in the Quran and we looked at ahadith in the Sunnah. then that was the fourth point. What are the proofs from the Quran and the Sunnah of this principle? We mentioned ayat in the Quran and we mentioned ahadith in the Sunnah. The fifth point is the ways in which khuruj is done. It is done in terms of belief, i'tiqad, and it is done in terms of amal, physically, and also in terms of qawl. But the one which is by speech, we have to distinguish between that which leads to khuruj and that which is just simply a legitimate, acceptable form of al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. That was the fifth point. And the sixth point was that the reasons behind people make ta'wil, one of them is like what we see from the Khawarij. They claim there is injustice in terms of mal, in terms of appointing people and giving them positions. That's the first reason. And they want adl. And the second reason is that these people, they see evils in the society and they cannot have sabr. They do not have sabr in the face of the evils that they see. And the seventh point that we mentioned is that obedience to the ruler in that which is good is ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so therefore there are three things the ruler does. Either he does something which is ma'roof, which is good, so we obey him in that, or he makes ijtihad in certain issues, so we follow him in that as well, or he commands something which is ma'siyah, disobedience. In that, it is not permissible to obey him in any of that. And the final point that we made, point number 8, is the issue of jawr, the issue of tyranny and oppression. There is jawr in the deen, and there is jawr in the dunya. In the deen, the principle is that we must see clear apparent kufr in order for khuruj to be permissible. And in the affairs of the dunya, there is nothing that permits khuruj against him. Even if he takes your wealth, and even if he beats your back. And this is what we find in the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these 8 points, with that we really conclude our discussion to do with the rulers. And the next point, inshallah, which we'll begin in a few weeks' time, perhaps inshallah, is again related to Sunnah and Jamā'ah. Sunnah and Jamā'ah. Being united and holding to the Sunnah and the Jamā'ah, and keeping away from furqah and things of that nature. So with that we conclude our lesson today. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.